Wow. Now I don't know where to start. This is a really dynamic, interesting group. It's I'd read all of the descriptions on paper, but it doesn't do justice to the great work that you're all doing. I hope you all noticed, because I certainly did, that there's a lot of great synergies already. People at very similar places, people at very different places, but clearly have something to offer each other. People sort of with the same challenges who I think should pair up, people who have complementary sort of skill sets that they can share. So I hope that you're able to, even from these little brief introductions, start to get a sense of how you might be able to work really collaboratively with each other amongst this group. The other thing there's many things racing through my mind right now, but the other thing that I did want to just sort of dispel right away is this whole profit versus non-profit. A great mentor of mine says that non-profit is a tax status. It's not a method of doing business. At the end of the day, you both have to keep the lights on and pay the bills and pay your staff. And in a profit situation, you make more money and you buy a yacht. In a non-profit situation, you make more money and you expand your program base. You deliver your service to more people. So they both have the same objective, which is to actually make more money. It's just what you do with the money or the taxes that you pay on it that's different. But everything else, nonprofit and profit, you're running a business and you use the best business practices that are available for each. I will start right away by just throwing some homework at you. There's a book that I think you should read. It's called The Power of Zilch. Has anybody heard of Nancy Lublin? Has anybody heard of the company Dress for Success?
Yes.
Right.
Oh.
Does anybody want to say what Dress for Success does?
Did she get the money from her father because he passed away and she wanted to be good for
Grandfather.
society? Oh, grandfather, yeah. She wanted to be good for society, so she wants to empower the women who could not get a job by wearing great outfits.
Yeah, so the
Didn't
exchange.
doesn't she have like a really super great, didn't she just start working for somebody else, like, or doesn't she have like other companies?
That was her first company.
Yeah.
She's got like 50 since then. And she wrote a book called, so her first company was Dress for Success, a $5,000 inheritance from her grandfather. Recognized a problem that a lot of women didn't necessarily have the right clothes to go to the interviews for the jobs they wanted, and she didn't want women to be discredited because they couldn't dress the part they needed to play. So she developed sort of a clothing bank with the $5,000, and it's still in operation across the country to this day. So women can sort of borrow clothes for interviews and for the first few months of their jobs, so that they go in knowing that they look right, they have the right kind of confidence in the interview, and they have access to these clothes until they're a few months in the job, and they can start affording to buy clothes that they should be wearing to their jobs, and then they obviously return the clothes, and it's a great success story. But her book is called The Power of Zilch, and the reason she wrote this book is because as a successful nonprofit person, she started getting invited to join a lot of boards of companies, for profit and nonprofit. And her nonprofit experience was the same as many nonprofit people have, which is looking at people in the for-profit for all of our best case practices or all of our best business studies. And she realized when she started joining these boards of for-profit companies that she had actually had an advantage coming up through nonprofit. And her advantage was that she had to do things faster and with fewer resources than people who were in for-profit, because no one was giving her big business loans to do what she was doing. It was so unproven, and there was no margin, and there was no profit at the end of it. So she ended up realizing that she was intimidated to sit on these boards of for-profit corporations, but when she actually started sitting on the boards, she realized she had much more to offer them than she knew. So she wrote a book called The Power of Zilch, which is literally all about how having nothing is a different kind of motivator and influencer, and how it sort of unleashes lots of different creativity. It's a great book. There are many, many good lessons in it, but the one lesson I want to focus on for tonight, and I hope you will pick up the book and learn about the other lessons. Nancy Lublin says you have to be one of three things to be successful. You have to be the first, you have to be the best, or you have to be the only. And I believe this to be pretty much true. And what we're going to talk about tonight is, how do you figure out if you're the first, you're the best, or you're the only? How do you know?
That's a good question.
Yes,
I was going to say, know your market, know your competitors.
absolutely. So that's really what we're going to use the time we have left for tonight. And I'm really glad that we spend time learning about each other and thinking about this as we go through, because it'll make the presentation much more rich. So when you're doing an environmental scan, you have to start from, thanks Jim, have a good night. You have to start from knowing who you are, right? Before you start looking at, like, don't even think about looking at your competition yet, because if you don't know who you are, you don't actually know who your competition is. And there are 4 different levels of, it's not just the competition you want to look at, and we'll get into that in a minute, but before you start looking outside, you've really got to look inside to figure out who you are, right? And so, what do you do? Who is your customer or client? Who do you think your customer or client is? What is your value proposition to them? Does everyone understand what a value proposition is? Can someone just sort of say in their words what they think a value proposition is?
The product, the product or service that you're bringing to your target audience, what they need.
What are they deriving from it? So your value proposition, that's the product or service part. The need is sort of a proof of concept or availability of market.
Right.
But your value proposition is, what is the value you're bringing to me? So if in your case, financial services, so that you can tap into my behavior in order to help create a financial plan that's going to actually match the way I think, instead of being a complete cognitive dissonance. So the value proposition for me is, it's a much less painful way to think about budgeting and using my resources differently, right? So that's the value proposition
That's
that you
what
have.
they
That's what you do.
That's
right?
Write that down.
So the value proposition isn't what you do, it's the benefit to the people for whom you're doing it. That's your value proposition. You have to know what your value proposition is. So another piece of homework. I actually have never given homework before in this class. I think you owe Peter a great thanks for this. So your homework is really answering these 3 questions. Like, and you have, okay, I forgot this. I have all these printed out. I can hand them out now, but I want eyes up here. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Don't go ahead. Don't be that guy or girl.
Okay.
Just stay with us, and now you won't have to write as much. Now you know you have it. Every word is on this page. You don't need to worry about it. But I would sort of say, think about, what do you do? Who do you think your client or your customer is? And my guess is, if we're doing our job right, over the next 6 to 7 classes that you're with us, your conception of who your client or customer is will change. If this group is anything like last year's group, which I would assume it will be to some degree, your idea of who you thought you were doing this for might change a little bit based on what you learn and what you discover about what you're doing. And I think a lot of that relates to the value proposition. I think it's such an easy concept that we skip over it, and I really want to emphasize, like, don't skip over it, because your value proposition is really what brings people in, right? It's the why you do what you do. You want to do what you talked about, sort of this, like, helping people to really, it's not just about a financial plan, it's about doing it in a way that works for people so that they can, right, live the lives they want and have the financial resources they want and the financial comfort and the wealth they want, right? So that's why you do what you do. You're enabling other people using the best tools you have to help them make those plans. So that's your value proposition, that's your why. And another great thing you should look at, if you like, is Simon Sinek. It's a great TED Talk. It's called Start With Why. It's really wonderful. That's your value proposition. That'll really help you understand it. As you're thinking about your value proposition, I would do it in this order. Write down what you think your value proposition is, then watch Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, Start With Why, and then see how he can help you sort of round that out, that value proposition. I think it would be really helpful for you to do that.
Do we have to get the book, or can we listen to audio tape?
Whatever works for you. I mostly do audio tape these
Yeah.
days because I tend not to sit still long enough to read a book. So,
I just have a question.
Yes.
So the name of the book is S-I-N-E-K, is that an acronym for something?
so his name
Oh, his
is
name.
Simon Sinek,
Okay.
and you can read. Listen, I love Simon. I love his writings, but I have to tell you, if you watch 3 of his TED Talks or 3 of his videos, you're going to get the essence of everything that's in the book. I don't think you need to buy it. I don't think you need to spend 4 hours reading his book or 6 hours. I think you need to spend 20 minutes watching his TED Talk. Rebecca's agreeing with me. I'm assuming.
Great, I watched it.
Right. Yeah.
We'll send up the link.
The book was The Power of Zilch. And Nancy has some talks, but I think Nancy's book is actually worth reading. It's a quick read. It's got a lot in there. And that's The Power of Zilch. So who else is out there? Where did everybody go? where are you looking? How do you know? How do you know where to look? So we're going to talk about that tonight. So you've got your value proposition, you're going to do that piece of the homework. Then once you've got that done, once you've done that good internal look, you got to look outward, right? And you can't just start sort of looking around. You need some framing. You know, a couple of you talked about structure. I need this structure. I want to know how to do what I'm doing. So that's what we're going to provide you tonight, is a little bit of structure for looking out there. And the way we do structure environmental scanning is we talked about the 4 C's. I don't know why I animated this slide. I hate animation. There you go. 4 C's. No surprise. So we have 4 different groups we're going to look at. Okay? And I don't want us to get too mired down and like really like I need to know exactly. Like this isn't a black and white situation that every person, every organization is going to fit neatly into one of these 4. This is a basic conceptual framework, and most of the organizations you're looking at when you're doing your environmental scanning will fit more or less into one of those 4. Don't make yourself crazy trying to. Put them into whatever group you think they fit in, and we'll define that in a moment. And the reason you're going to put them into groupings to define them is because when you're looking at a competitor, you're looking at very different things about the competitor than when you're looking at a complement or a collaborator. So let's go through these. So competitors, same value proposition and same customer. So Papillon Financial, I'm picking on you a lot because I think you're just easy. Let me go to someone else. I mean, you're from oh, that's right. I knew I liked you. I'm from Toronto also.
You sound Canadian.
From Montreal.
You said
I like Montreal. Montreal's great. I'm going home tomorrow. So, okay, vegan. Okay.
Yes.
You've got, right here in New York, you've got Blossom Bakery, right? You know Blossom?
I do know Blossom.
That's them. They're your competitors, right?
Yeah, they're a little dry.
I didn't say they were good.
I know.
I didn't say they were, I just said they're your
my
competitors.
correct.
Same value proposition, vegan, healthy lifestyle, baked goods, right? They've got the whole little Blossom Bakery right around the corner from my house.
They do.
Unfortunately, I had a lot of the gluten-free peanut butter chocolate chip cookies when I first moved here. They're not bad, but I'll try yours too. So that's a competitor. Exact same value proposition, exact same customer base, right? So then that's price point. That's, you know, everything is sort of matching up. Like Louis Vuitton is not competing with. I don't know why I use Louis Vuitton because I don't know any other bag makers. Like whatever your like TJ Maxx bag, I don't know, but like Target, if you're buying your handbag from Target, Louis Vuitton is not worried about you, and vice versa, right? So even though you might have the same value proposition, which is provide, I mean it's a different value proposition, but let's assume it was. Very different customer because of price point differentiation. So same competitor really has same value proposition and same price point, same customers who they're attracting. Comparators have same value proposition but different customers. So this would be your Target bag and your Louis Vuitton. So although you could argue that within that value proposition, Louis Vuitton is selling a whole lifestyle and Target is selling a convenience, right? So that is a little bit different. But in comparators, same value proposition, different customer. In complements, you have a different value proposition but the same customer. This is a really fun one. Can anyone think of a complement? So different value proposition, but same customer.
Those new Bounty sheets that have the soap infused in them, that's a collaboration.
Oh yeah, you skipped ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, but that's a good one. It's a great collaboration. Right, so with the
The
sheet
Dawn
and
or whatever
yeah,
brand it is.
all on together.
Chipotle and a taco truck.
Chipotle and the
I
taco
could say
truck.
like Nobu and.
Those are more competitors a little bit. Nobu and what?
Louis Vuitton.
Right. There you go. So Nobu, different value proposition, same. So Nobu, high-end sushi,
Nice.
ridiculous, like $200 for one roll, and a bag that costs you as much as your first car. Like that's different value proposition, but the same customers going to both, right? So that's interesting, and you want to know about your complements because they could become collaborators, or at least they understand how to market to the audience you want to market to, which is why you'd be interested in their complement. And then collaborators, different value proposition, different customer, same bottom line. So this would be looking at a particular price point. So a different value proposition, so you're doing different things for different reasons. You have different customer, you know, it wouldn't necessarily be the same person who's doing both of those things. But you have the same bottom line, and that's usually sort of a financial bottom line. So I'll give you a few examples here, which may help. And really, again, so competitors, a real obvious age-old competition, Coke and Pepsi, right? So same value proposition, same customer. Anyone argue with this? Make sense to you? Good. Any others you can think, good competitors? Let's just stay away from fast food and soft drinks. Anything else?
Louis Vuitton and Gucci.
Yes, Louis Vuitton and Gucci. Honda and Toyota,
Yeah.
Uber and Lyft, right.
Adidas and Nike.
Right. Okay. So, comparators. Same value proposition, different customer. So I use Barry's Bootcamp and Soul Cycle. Does that make sense? So value proposition is about you're going to come in and we're going to help you have a healthier lifestyle, get you more fit, but different customers. I think the person who does, I mean, you could be the same customer, but I think that this is so extreme in the fitness world. You know, this is the people who want to get sort of like crawl through mud as they're getting fit, and these are the people who want to listen to like beautiful music and have purified, oxygenated $8 bottle of water while they're getting fit, right? So those are different customers, but they're both there for the same reason and want the same kind of results. Compliments. So this is different value proposition but same customer. So I put up Tom's shoes. Does everybody know Tom's shoes? So Tom's shoes are it's a social
Social enterprise.
social enterprise. You buy a pair of shoes. They're those little they look like little ninja
Right.
shoes.
Yeah.
Little nothing canvasy things. They cost I don't know $60, and every time you buy a pair of shoes, Tom's donates a pair of shoes to someone who doesn't have shoes. So that's their part of their value proposition. Who would they have Who would be a same customer?
Whole Foods. I was thinking that.
They do sell
They
Tom's
sell,
shoes
yeah.
at Whole Foods. It could be a compliment because people are sort of interested in that sort of organic, healthy lifestyle. The one,
Prius.
yeah, I used a different one,
Warby Parker.
which was Warby Parker. So Warby Parker has the exact same model but with glasses.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that, you know, the value proposition is a little bit the same. One is really about shoes, one is about eyewear. But this is the same customer. This is really appealing to that person who wants to make sure he gets shoes also wants to make sure someone gets glasses, right? So that's a compliment. So they're not, you know, they're not competitors in a traditional sense. However, you don't see Tom's and Warby doing a collaboration as of yet, and maybe they will or maybe they won't, but they want the same customer at the end of the day, and that customer has a finite number of dollars, so they may never get into bed with each other because they understand that customer only has so much disposable money, so even though they're complements, there is still an element of competition to it, but it's just, you know, that's why it's not exactly a neat collaboration. So this is an older collaboration. Does anyone remember this? Dell Computers, I guess about 5 years ago, had a really interesting collaboration. Can anyone guess with whom?
We have it.
That's why I told you not to read it. Ruined everything. So they did with OPI. Yeah. So and they created. You can order your Dell to match your nails. So right. So think about like. From my understanding, and actually, well, one of my best friends is the head of global marketing for a company that owns OPI, so I actually know a little bit about this. So OPI is not like the highest end nail polish, right? And Dell is certainly not the highest end computer. So the people who are buying both of those things, they want a certain amount of quality. Like this is not an Acer computer. Do you guys know Acer?
Yeah.
That's like, right? So Dell is quality, but at a value. It's a
Right.
budget price computer, but it's not super low budget. And from what I understand, OPI is exactly the same position in the market, but from a nail polish perspective. So this is the same bottom line, They have different customers. You wouldn't necessarily think of the computer buyer as your nail polish buyer, right? So they did this interesting collaboration, and they were able to create some synergies in the market. So those are collaborators.
Is
All
it
right.
successful? Just curious. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I think it's successful as anything Dell has done.
So not that successful.
Right. So what can we learn? So this is really the important part. Like understanding how to put them into buckets is interesting, but this is this is the meat of the evening. Also, two things. I know I talk fast, so please, I'm happy to repeat anything. And secondly, questions are always great, so keep them coming. So what can we learn? Okay, so from our competitors, we want to look at their business and revenue models and their markets, right? I mean, these are the people who are same. We can learn the most from them if they exist. And keep in mind, again, like we started this conversation by talking about you want to be one of three. You want to be the only, you want to be the first, or you want to be the best. And if you can't occupy one of those three spaces, you're going to really struggle, right? Because you got it. If you're going to do something that someone else is already doing, you got to do it better, faster, cheaper, right? If you're doing something new, that's also a challenge in its own, right? And if you're only, so you have to think about those three things when you're looking at your competitors: the business and revenue models and markets. So if somebody out there is doing the exact same thing, so like with vegan bakeries or with financial services, or even, I mean, your locks are a little bit different. Somebody is doing it, but they're doing it in two pieces. You put it in one, but those are still your competitors, right?
Yeah, I have a question. It's about the size of the company. My competitors, they're like huge.
Yeah, that's a
And I'm
problem.
like, no,
Right,
very
right.
small. So,
So-
are they still my competitors? What I can learn from them? They have like different resources.
Right. So that's a great question. So what can you learn from them? How can you let their experience be your free teacher, right? So you can learn a phenomenal amount from them. You can learn about distribution channels. You can look at the way they market it. I mean, there are so many things you can take from them, and then figure out what is your twist on that. What can you take from them to make your business more efficient? And then how do you create your own, I mean, you've got your patents, right? So your integrated model is different than any of the models that they can put out there. I'm assuming you're patent protected here as well. I know you said Europe.
Yes, have your US.
US and Europe.
pending.
Right, so you've already got something that's different. So you're the only one, right? So you've got one of Nancy's three. You're the only one who has the integrated lock. So now you need to look at them and figure out like all the stuff that they're doing. Let that be your teacher. And for sure, there are things you're not going to be able to do a $5 million marketing campaign on year one. Like that's not going to be possible. But you're going to be able to learn about how do they position themselves in the market, right? Like you can look at their positioning. You can look at the language they're using around their positioning. You can look at the colors they use. You can look at all kinds of things around their branding, imaging, position that they paid some firm $500,000 to do, and you can sort of recraft that to match yours, and that's how you can sort of learn from it, right? And then channels, distributions, what stores are they in, what stores are they selling the most successfully in, what areas of the company are they, or country are they more successful in, and if you're offering something that they cannot offer, and you know that certain parts of the country or certain distribution channels are buying more locks, I'm making this up because I don't know a lot about lock sales, but those are the markets you want to be in, right? You don't want to stay away from them because they're in those markets. You want to go into those markets because you're going in with something different. They've already proven to you that a market exists in that geographical area, so you go in and you do it differently. Do you guys remember when Starbucks opened? Where did they open?
Seattle.
Yes. More specifically, when they were opening new branches of Starbucks, where would they open?
Pike Place Market.
Individual branches, forget where on the street, what locations, where would they place themselves near?
Different market.
Whatever coffee shops already existed, and not only whatever coffee shops already existed, what were the most successful coffee shops? Every new Starbucks that opened within like a 30-foot radius or 50-foot, they had a formula.
I think it was Tim Hortons, right?
it was, I mean, it
But
can't
Canada
it's
be-
really
is-
unreasonable.
Canada is-
Where you wanna look?
Doesn't matter. It's smart. It's not one or the other. It's business, right? So if you know that there, if you have a city like Manhattan. I mean, how many neighborhoods do we have? Like 8,000 neighborhoods. If you're Starbucks coming into Manhattan for the first time, you want to know which neighborhoods are selling the most coffee. You want to know which coffee shops in those neighborhoods are selling the most coffee, and you want to open up right next door. If you think you're doing something very different, or if you think you can do it better, faster, cheaper, right? So if you're doing it better, faster, cheaper, or if you're doing it different, you're the only one. Starbucks was the only one who was doing coffee the way they were doing it when they first opened. So all they needed was a market of people who were drinking coffee, and if they plunked themselves in the middle of that market where people were already drinking coffee, they knew they would be successful because they were doing coffee so differently. So that's what you can learn from a huge, I mean, there were many coffee chains that were much bigger than Starbucks when Starbucks developed this strategy and started putting themselves down beside other coffee shops. So they were the underdog. It's hard to think about them as the underdog, but they were. And that was a very aggressive strategy, but it's still a strategy that can work. Right? Somebody else did the research to figure out that there was a market of coffee drinkers, so why wouldn't you want to take advantage of it?
Are you Generation X? Just
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I mean, I am.
Yeah, I was curious.
You what?
Just curious because there's a whole study that we have different values of that than the millennials, and I was just curious. Because like Generation X generally feels a little more uncomfortable about that because that's like our whole thing is like we don't want to put the small guy out of business, but the generations that flank us. Anyhow, that's what I was just curious.
I'm X by age, but
Yeah.
millennial by temperament.
Okay.
That's a great answer.
That's good. That's good.
But you know, also Starbucks has become the gauge now, which is a new layer that's been added to their success of how the area, the neighborhood is going to be. What kind of people are coming to the neighborhood? Can they afford that $6 latte or whatever the cost is? That's a new feather in their cap.
That's right. That's right.
It's really interesting.
So that's what we want to look at competitors, and it's big, small, or otherwise. We want to learn as much about their business model and their revenue as possible and their market. Where are they finding their market? And that's where we want to go. As long as we're doing something better, different, faster, we're the only ones doing it in that way. If we're doing things exactly the same as they are, we better find a whole new place to do business, right? Because that won't work. Okay. Any questions about competitors and what we can learn from them? All right. Let's look at the next one: comparators. How they operate and the services that they provide. So a little bit different. We want to look because these aren't exact head-to-heads, right? So we're not doing the same thing that we're doing, but they're comparisons that we can use. So we want to know how are they operating, what services do they provide? Are there things that they're doing for their customer or client base that we could be doing also that would enhance that service or not? And then generally, how are they operating? What do they generally do?
So is the assumption here that if you're analyzing who is most aligned with you as a comparator, that you may have different customers, but that you want their customers, and you're trying to understand how to get their customers. So if the assumption is you have the same value proposition, but you may have a set of customers that you don't have, you're like, yeah, it's about getting those customers.
They've already figured out how to attract the kind of people that you want, right?
So you want their people.
Right.
You want those kinds of people. You're going to have roughly the same sort of market that you're going after. It could be their people that you're going after, but the same kinds of people. So how do they attract those kinds of people? Whatever those kinds of people mean in your situation.
And so I guess that's where I'm having the challenge. From a nonprofit perspective, I'm just trying to process through this as far as if our customers, or for example, so my customers, if you will, or my clients for the nonprofit are youth between the ages of 8 and 18. And I'm thinking that if in a place like next to Maplewood, you have, Irvington, Newark, you know, and then further on down the road it's Roselle, Linden. Most of the population that we're seeking, or at least that I'm seeking to work with, is in the Newark kind of Irvington area, but they're already saturated with nonprofits. And so, I guess I'm just, like I said, I'm processing through this as I go along, but I'm just trying to understand then, should I be seeking their clientele, or does that mean I need to kind of recast and really reshape?
You have constituents though, you don't have
I
clients.
don't know if I would ever
Okay.
look at it as their clientele at all, because I think that when we position something that way, it's almost as though we're giving up our right to our market. So it's really your target market, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, and who's already in that space, who's already in front of them, talking to them, or selling them, services that are similar to yours. And I think it's just, how do you raise your red flag and grab it the attention from that same market?
So is that where the first, that's what are we doing that is so different?
Right. So I think in the nonprofit space, this is something you need to look at it a little bit more complexly. I think on the one hand, you need to think about your consumers. You have consumers of your product and service, and I would say your customers in it are maybe something different. I would almost look at as my customers as my funders.
They're more,
Donors.
but the people that you serve in your social enterprise, those are your constituents. And even with the influx of all of the nonprofits because of Cory Booker and Aaron McGruder, Zuckerberg, and all the influx of monies into those surrounding areas, we're dealing with children. You still cannot find nonprofits, every nonprofit that will reach every single child. That's why New York has been influx with nonprofits, especially with children and the charter school thing. I don't want to get into that because I could go all day about that. But you have constituents. There will always be a lot of 8 to 18-year-olds, and not every charter school and after school program is going to get everyone. So you have to really be detailed on who you can get and how you can get them and the service that you give them, because I mean, not every child is doing karate, soccer, this thing,
Right.
after school, so there are gonna be students that need your program because of how they even found your program, and that's really word of mouth,
But it is important
people
to
you serve.
remember that you have sort of different sets of constituents. So you have the kids and you're attracting them with art and architecture, but your donors and the people who are going to be funding you as you move forward, those are not a different group, but you're going to be asking them for different things.
And there's two different strategies. It's either that people who give tend to keep giving, or there's some people who they only pick a certain amount of money and a certain amount of charities that they're going to give to that year. So there's two different types of givers.
There's more than two different though. There's a real scale, especially in your membership
Yeah.
and your funding. But that's nonprofit.
So you have to do this almost twice, right? Like you have to sort of go through it and look at like who are your consumers, and then who are I would almost use customers as synonymous with the people who are funding you, because it's different. It's not exactly the right terminology, but I think you want to almost think of it that way, so you can help. This will help you. This scanning will help you if you split it out in those two ways.
And also, I think the operative word for you in particular is differentiating yourself from, there's always going to be competition out there, and that's the good part of it, but it's separating yourself, even though conceptually, philosophically, you still have the same ideals, but how you separate yourself from them, what makes you the, if you will, for lack of other words, the better one, offering more, giving more. And that also is going to draw the attention to your the people who are going to support you financially, and the opposite end of it, your core people.
Your smartest funders now will want to know what you're doing that's different than everyone else on the wall.
Right.
If you don't have a good answer for that, then they'll do one of two. Then they'll keep funding whatever the sort of the biggest or old as it was or is, or they might, they're funders who are forcing amalgamations amongst nonprofits because there are too many nonprofits who are doing so many things that are similar to one another, and they keep going to the same funders because it matches the funder's mandate. And the funder, instead of funding 3 different nonprofits that are doing something within a breadth of each other, they'll say, we will fund you, but you need to amalgamate and become one. So you need to really understand what is it you're doing that's different than everyone else. And if you're doing things that are not drastically different than what everyone else is doing, maybe you should think about what partnerships could exist and really leverage those partnerships as you maybe build a new organization together that subsumes 1 or 2 other organizations before a funder forces you to do it or a funder ignores you because you're not. Right?
No, thank you, because as all of you actually were speaking, the thing that I think we do different is this architecture component specifically for underprivileged youth. And so, like I said, because that was my field prior to ministry, I know that there are only 1% minority in architecture. And so, and you have NJIT right in Newark, which is, that's interesting. Thank you. Thank you.
That's your hook.
Yeah,
That's
There you go, you're done. Graduated.
I can't.
Have a good night.
Don't disturb us now, do you?
Yeah, really.
Okay. So your compliments, you want to look specifically at their marketing, their outreach, and their engagement. So the compliments was the Tom's and Warby Parker example. So you have the different value proposition but same customer. So you want to look at how are they attracting those customers, what kind of outreach are they doing, and how are they keeping those customers engaged. And then collaborators. So opportunity to cross-promote and plan. It seemed like we could have some collaborators in this room already, right? Really interesting collaborations that I think that could come out. So, yeah, learning how do I think the thing you want to know about your collaborators is what is their sort of business ethos, what is their philosophy, what are their business values, what are their core values as business operators. Before you get into bed with somebody, you really want to know what is driving their motivations and how do they conduct themselves as professionals, because that will drive, especially at the smaller level that you're at right now, that will really drive your relationship as collaborators. So you want to be careful about that in the beginning as new organizations. There could be great opportunity, but it can also come at great detriment if you're not teaming up with the right people for the right reasons who have the same sort of overall motives and ethics as you do.
But here's a question. So when you collaborate with, let's say, a prospective partner, and you're relatively new, what do you have to offer them? Well, they have this huge database, they have so much. What are you bringing to them? What are you bringing to the table to them?
Go ahead.
So what I do is with the clients I look at their, like I do the interviews, right? And I see that they're a startup or they just launched their company. So I look into everything about them. I read their profile about them. I read about the company information, when did it started, how did they started. And then I look at where are they missing on things that they need help with, and the strengths that I have, the connections I have, or the people that I know that they will need to reach, right? And they don't have the funds because they're a startup. Mm-hmm. So that's how you reach out to them and say, I have an idea, I think we should do a collaboration. If we can cross promote each other, we can use it on our social media channels. If you can just, give some of the products to some people that you might know, I'll definitely cross promote you, and I'll have some of the products that I know. Or we can do a like for example, like some of these like products, we can do like a collaboration where we can sell the same products on the same table. So those are collaborations. Mm-hmm. Or you can do like video work, a YouTube channel. You can do collaborations with other people who are great at science, and then this person is really great at beauty. all beauty and science goes together, right? Because you gotta formulate things when you make products. Those are collaborations that you think of.
I think at the end of the day, you have to do some research into the company and you have to understand what is your value proposition for them at this moment in their history. So you have this newish, unique take on apparel that's maybe fresh, maybe exciting, maybe, I don't know what the other words are you would use, adjectives that you might want to use to describe it. So what is a company that wants to prove its relevancy in that space, right? So a company that's maybe a more traditional company that is trying to transition into a more modern feel, and they want to demonstrate that partnering with you because you're very demonstrably showing that through your clothing. So I would almost go back to like a nail polish, and you look at some of the nail polish brands that have been around for a million years. So how do you partner with a nail polish brand, and then you can show that they are much more contemporary and sort of lifestyle oriented in the way that your clothing line is. That's a good value proposition for
Got it.
them.
Yes. I have another idea. So you do apparel, right? So the apparel, there's a whole fashion industry that's breaking, like disrupting right now. So that's called wearable text.
I'm sorry, it's called?
Wearable text, technology that's included into your clothing line, right? So I went to an event called Decoded Fashion, and they have Rebecca Minkoff, they have like all these amazing designers talking about what's disrupting the industry and why Rebecca Minkoff is actually killing it and doing so well on the fashion side. She's only been around for a few years. She incorporates technology into her fashion line. Because if you look at her clothing line, I mean, I think everybody can do something great like that, right? Why is it that she's different from other people? Because she incorporates technology, not only the social media part, but the algorithms in the back end of the computers, and the clothing line itself, and dominate things. You know, so you have an apparel line, so you have to think about how can you stand out from all the other brands out there.
It was also up at, I think it was Fordham Mall like a couple of months ago, where they had a workshop on technology and the apparel industry.
That's what they call wearable text, yeah.
Exactly.
I was just saying, before you even get there, you need to start looking into Kit and Ace. Is everyone familiar with Lululemon?
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
lemon?
Lululemon, some people pronounce it Lemon.
Active
I say
Veil.
From
Lululemon.
Vancouver, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, Chip Walker has been ousted for all the Canadians, and his wife and son just started a new company, and they have this new patent called technical cashmere because they're looking to really merge the luxury and the casual wear. So if you even looking at their website, and I signed up for this stuff because I'm about to invest whenever they hit that IPO. But I mean, before you even get to wearable tech, there, you know, even with Uniqlo and all of the sustainable fabrics and stuff like that, that's the next wave for wearable tech. You know, so you might want to look into that. Kit and Ace.
No, it was just a comment. I just thought of
Kit.
another example of
Kit.
two companies that Guilt. I don't know if everyone knows Guilt,
Yeah.
but I'm addicted to personally.
Really?
Guild City, Guild, same thing.
Versus Etsy.
Different.
And Etsy was created to give
Brooklyn.
local artists, yeah, they're Brooklyn, local artists an opportunity to sell their wares. So they would be different value proposition. Are they the same value proposition? No, they're not the same. They're a different market.
Yeah.
Different customer.
Tell me.
They different customer, different value proposition,
Different,
everything.
yeah, different.
Yeah.
It's a different mission.
And Etsy makes no money, even with the IPO, they're making no money.
So they haven't gone public yet.
Still, they're getting ready there. They're not gonna make any. Sorry, I don't know.
That's okay.
Suggest this.
Okay, so collaborators, so opportunities. So, how do we know who our 4 C's are when we're out there trying to figure this out?
I'm
Promise.
just keeping up.
Next time, I'm telling all the presenters, do not hand your sheets out in advance. Okay,
Research.
industry knowledge, talk to people, have informational interviews, find some people who are our mentors, people who are gonna mentor you, just have conversations. The internet, very powerful tool, you'd be amazed at what you can find out the internet about your competitors, especially if they're large. You find out many, many, many things.
I just want to say I'm totally agreeing with everything you're saying, and I think that one place where a lot of people in all the business classes that I've taken from college and whatever the case may be in all these programs is that people don't really teach you how to search. Like me, I can find anything on the internet because I know how to search with parameters and such, and I think that's one piece that should be more integral and more expanded on how to search, using plus signs, using parameters, using parentheses, because I think that's kind of a barrier. All this information out there, but a lot of people do not know how to search. So maybe you could teach us how to source information. Because a lot of people still, and I haven't had one class yet where people teach you how to put, like even in your email with Gmail, knowing to put plus and has, colon, attachment, so you can just find things that only have attachments in there or certain, keywords and stuff like that. And I think if we learn how to
Sounds
search
like a
like
great
that,
class for you to lead. Volunteering?
maybe.
Rebecca's writing it all down.
Certainly workplace university, like duly noted.
And then just ask previous, current customers, clients, others, right? So, I live around the corner from Blossom. You might want to ask me about why did I stop? I said that I used to buy their
Yes,
I
so
didn't
you
buy
buy
it.
a chocolate.
I don't know anymore, right? Like, so ask your customers, ask other people's customers, ask people who are actually the end users of these things. Ask people how likely they would be to use something. Ask people how likely they would be to recommend something. It's the most powerful question you can ask anybody about any product or service. A lot of people will not use something again for reasons that have nothing to do with how valuable the product or service was. So if you ask them if you're likely to return to the restaurant, out of 5, they may give it a 3, but if you ask them how likely you are to recommend it, they might give it a 5. And maybe the reason they didn't want to return themselves has nothing to do with their overall perception of the restaurant. I'm never going back because I had a breakup. You don't get that in a 3 to 5 scaling question, right? But how likely are you to recommend it? 5 out of 5. Why? No one. It's not anyone else's pain. It's my pain, right? So like,
Get over it.
you're right.
That's behind the Blossom story.
No. over a cupcake.
So it's like a sense memory situation.
I had some one day and it tasted very chemically to me, and I realized like later I didn't like the way it tasted.
Well, next meeting there will be cookies, right? Next meeting.
So when you're having that conversation, make sure to include that question: how likely would you be to recommend whatever to other people? All right. So except for maybe this idea of the internet and how to refine search, this isn't like, it's not hidden knowledge. This is not something that you need a multi-million-dollar corporation to be able to figure this out. It's out there. You'd be surprised. I mean, we have a great network of mentors. We have a great network of business people. Rebecca can help you get connected. She can connect you to other networks that have incredible business people in them. We can find the right people for you to talk to. We can help you with your internet searching. We can help you put together focus groups if you need to put a focus group together of people who might likely be your clients. We can do all kinds of things like that. This isn't hard, but it's really important that you sort of do this work.
But I mean, maybe you're getting at this. Maybe this isn't quite it. What about the potential of doing a survey? So a lot of us in here have people who either bought our products or have come to our use our services. If we have access to their information, we have this great bunch of data potentially sitting out there that we can get. It may not help us determine all of the 4 C's. It may be impossible to get there, but I would think that surveying our current base, it helps you understand, like, well, if we were going to go this way, would you go there with us?
Absolutely. I think it's great, and it's definitely there to ask previous and current customers and clients, others. Survey is one way to ask. Surveys are tricky.
Knowing what to ask them.
Firstly, everybody, I mean, you flush a toilet in a public space and you get a survey about whether or not you enjoy the experience, right?
I
Like,
do that, sure. It's
it's
everything
ubiquitous
level.
right now. There's every time I fly, I get a survey. Every time I check out of a hotel, every time I rent a car. It's like, are you kidding me? And I only fill them out if I'm really angry. So I rarely fill them out, but 98% of the time I'm really, really happy. But I can't. It's a full-time job to fill out surveys. So I think you have to be really careful, really selective. You have to, your communication about the survey has to be incredibly targeted. The survey itself has to be really, really targeted, really brief. There's a real art to it. There's an art to the way you ask the questions. I do think they're important, but I would be really thoughtful and strategic about how I designed it and deployed it. And I wouldn't do it very often.
I completely agree. The surveys that I've run that have been successful are the ones attached to like a free subscription after, and though there are tons of companies that will allow you to like cross-populate and have a survey that you make. I make like a simple one in Google Forms, but then I have the link where you can go ahead and get a free subscription to, Elle Magazine, and they do that for free.
Right.
Those have been the ones that, have been, people actually fill out without like a, I don't want to say value proposition, but without like an incentive or a reward. Now it's getting a little bit harder, and there are a lot of those rewards companies that will.
There's a lot of controversy over surveys and rewards. And I think
To the incentive.
from where most of you are at, I think that if you don't have a group that's loyal enough to give you a 30% response rate on a survey, it's probably not worth doing in the first place. I don't think you want random surveys right now. I just don't think that's where you're at. Your markets are not, unless I'm missing something, I don't think your markets are big enough to merit that, and you would need to really understand survey design and survey analysis if you did have a market big enough, in which case you'd hire a surveying company to do it effectively. But for this sort of homebrew surveys, dealing with mostly your current clients, be thoughtful, be strategic, wouldn't attach a reward though, because I think you want people who are genuinely interested in sort of helping you out to some degree. Fill that out. Question?
I was just going to say, if I get a survey from someone, I automatically unsubscribe because that's adding to my day, and I don't have that time. So I actually, it has the adverse effect to me,
A lot of people.
I'm ending this relationship because you asked me a question.
When you said the focus group, do you mean like people come in here and look at an exam and focus group, or what do you mean by focus group?
I mean, if you had
Or is this online thing that they do it on their own?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know about online focus groups, but
Okay.
I would be willing to, if we could put together, we would help you think about how to structure a focus group, who you would want to get. We would think about helping you figure out who would be the 8 to 12 people that you would want in that focus group. We may have access to those people, we may not. You might have access to those people. We would help you to sort of brainstorm that together.
Okay.
And if we were able to get to the point where we could have a focus group, that's something that I would personally conduct for you. I would help you figure out what the questions of the focus group would be. I would do the interviewing, or one of my colleagues on the board, or one of the other mentors would do the interviewing. But it's one of the services that we've done. We conduct focus groups for organizations. How will it feel if we sort of agree with you and see the same sort of writing on the wall that it needs to evolve into something that you're much less passionate about? Is it worthwhile you still doing it? Or if you want to keep it to the thing you're really, really passionate about, how do you accept that maybe it will never scale? Maybe it's always going to be a need. Maybe it's always going to be a hobby. Maybe it's always going to be a secondary thing. And maybe that's okay, right? Like, we've had situations where that's sort of the end result that we've gotten to people is sort of to say, like, don't give up your day job, and here's how you can incorporate it and balance your life and still have this passion. But if you're going to change that core and that value proposition, you got to be real comfortable, and you got to really think about why you're doing it. And if it's just to be successful, I don't think that's why you're here, right? People gave up law, people gave up finance, people gave up lucrative things for their passion. So if we can't figure out a way together to help you make that passion scale, then let's not corrupt it just so that you can make money. Let's figure out if maybe it's just something you're going to do on the side so that you can really enjoy it still and be fulfilled in that way. And that's what I think you do with the information. Create collaboration, make you more successful. Okay, done. Last slide. Good luck out there. Sorry for the inconvenience. This is my favorite. We're trying to change the world, and I think that regardless of what you're doing, the process of following your passion, following your dreams, it's inspirational. Whether it's picture frames or finance or Joshua's house or tea, for me it's somewhat irrelevant what the end result of that is. The fact is that you guys are going for it, you're following your dreams, you're following your passion. That ripple effect that creates in the world, that is changing the world. And that's why I like to be around this work, is because it's inspiring. It keeps me fresh and excited about life, quite frankly, to know that there are people out there who really just will give up, the good paychecks and really follow their dreams. It's amazing. So thank you all for being here. Sorry for everyone.